Welcome back, y'all. This is another episode of Absalom, the Arts of Astrology and Demon Slaying. My name is Oak, and we once again have our very special guest, Eileen Nauman, who has been on before. We are going to continue this conversation. This time, it's going to be energy medicine for challenging times. And the focus of this topic is going to be water. Eileen is a multi generational herbalist as well as a lifelong metaphysical practitioner, has had experiences as an EMT, also in the Navy, which I just learned. But just overall, having an eclectic background, she is just someone that is deeply rooted in science as well as the spirit. And so, this is actually going to be really amazing to have her take on something so fundamental like the element of water. And as you guys are listening to this interview, I really want you to listen to the quality of the choice of words that she uses, the quality of the integration when it comes to how she is taking in her relationship with the earth, because I think that is a big part of the medicine itself. But I will stop here and I'm going to let you guys get into this interview yourselves. So let's welcome Eileen.
It's good to be back.
Our last conversation was very popular. I had so many people reaching out to say how much they appreciated what you were sharing about grounding, just the way that you're coming with the information that is just so like rooted, grounded. I think that we all really need that right now. So we're very grateful.
Yeah, we're all balloons in the sky right now, floating around.
Very much so. What did you want to talk about today?
I want to talk about where we left off. The talk that I gave was what I call a survivor's talk. It's surviving the change of ages from Capricorn to Aquarius in regards to Pluto going from an earth sign into an air sign. And the air is an element that is not happy with earth. They don't get along. If it was water and earth, you make mud. They're compatible. But air and earth are not. And so we're going through one hell of a chaotic, discombobulating time. And I don't know anybody who isn't stressed. It's just a matter of how stressed are you and are you grounded? So when I talked to you last time about this, it was a piece or a part of how to survive this. And where I want to pick up today is about water. And depending upon the medical expertise, they say we were between 79% and 90% water as a human being. So water is absolutely essential and vital to us. I want to open that chapter up for everybody because it is so profound for our health, for our mental stability. Because if you don't drink enough water, your brain kind of has brain farts and you don't remember things. And it isn't because you're elderly like I am. And water, also, they're finding out and they're finally proving from a science standpoint that the molecular structure of water does a lot more than anybody ever thought. And this is where I want to pick up, because if you drink water, there's things you can do with it to help you and stabilize you or ground you, and also get you to a place within yourself where you're far more steady and the stress isn't going to bother you as much. You can do all these things with water. And I want to go through all of this starting back in the 1970s with me and where I entered the picture and tell people a story. I also have a lot of illustrations and also how people can do it. And again, if you're a survivor, you got to learn how to do these things yourself. You have to remember them, you have to learn the steps, and you have to be responsible for what you're doing. And if you do that, then you're far ahead of the mass of people on this planet that don't have a clue. And they're the ones that may not survive it if our climate keeps changing and the temperature keeps going higher and higher. There are things we can do about that. And that's why I'm bringing water into it, because the fastest way to die is 3 to 7 days. You're dead without any water in your body. That's it. Food you can go out without because we all have body fat and we can last a month or more without any food. But water is our life. It is the sustenance. It is ground zero. So we need to talk about this. And I'm talking only about temperature and heat. That's it. There's a lot of other things, politics, for instance, important things like food and water, a place that has a roof or a hut over your head, and how to get along without having the AMA around anymore. Hey, A lot of the doctors, we're going to have more epidemics. I can guarantee you that because the temperature's going up and viruses and bacteria love heat more than anything else. And they begin to multiply and produce at phenomenal speed. We're in for it. I just want to try, at least with my experience, not that I know everything because I don't, but what I do know, I can pass along to you and you can try. And if it works for you, that's fine. If it doesn't, hey, no mas, no loss either. Okay, so that's where we're at. I want to talk about charging water today. If it's all right with you, I'm going to share screen. I'm going to tell your viewership how to charge water today, and I'm going to tell them a story. It's all true. And I'm going to show them how to do it and what it is energy-wise so that you understand the complete foundation of why I'm sharing this with you. And I said here are graphics to illustrate how to charge water. And I said, this is Energy 101. It's a technique that was shown to me by my gem and crystal teacher back in the 1980s. Her name was Oceana Fastwolf, and she was half Apache and half Mohawk Indian. And she was a very fierce warrior. She was absolutely Apache. But I studied gems and crystal healing under her off and on for 3 years. And later on, after many years of using her methodologies that she taught over the years about using gems and crystals, I went to her and said, look, I feel like I've used it enough. I know what it works, and I've seen it work and make profound miracles for people. I said, do I have your permission? Because you never teach something from someone who's taught you, at least in the Native American sense, without getting their blessing and their approval. And I did get that. And I'm grateful to Oceana. She's no longer here in this third dimension, but I can guarantee you she's interdimensional now. So as a child, I was taught by 2 metaphysician parents who were clairvoyant. My father has a Native American DNA background that began in the early 1600s, shortly after the Mayflower landed at Plymouth Rock. His people, who happened to be English royalty, came next to Plymouth Rock here on the East Coast of the United States. My mother was a hands-on healer, and I want to just take a moment and help you understand how good she was. And again, this is one of the toolbox that is up in everybody's right hemisphere of their brain. Everybody has this equipment. The only question is are you using it or do you want to use it? And there are DNA lines, family history that goes back. Mine in particular with my father was 12 generations, and my mother is about the same. And there are things, skill sets that go through every family line, both on the mother and the father side. And in my case, my mother being a hands-on healer, she would work 5 days a week. And this is in the 1950s. I was born in 1946. But she was a secretary for $200 a month. And we didn't have much money because we were just coming out of World War II. And before that, we had the Great Depression for 10 years, and people were starving to death. And people were moving all over the continent from the Midwest to the West Coast for the most part. And one of the things she did, because she was very good at it, and she used it, first of all, on us 4 kids that she had, 2 girls, 2 boys, and I was the oldest. Anytime we were sick, she would lay her left hand, because this is the energy comes in from the left side of the aura through you and then out this hand, because there's a chakra right here. All right. The left side of the body is feminine energy coming in. The right side of our body is masculine energy, and it too has a little chakra here on your hand. And you send energy out to others. And this is where you make physical manifestation. It's the masculine that actually makes the empires, state building, or whatever. Things that get put on the ground, you manifest them, they're there. And that is all positive masculine energy. So my mother being the healer, she would always put her left hand on somebody because she wanted the energy to come through her heart, because she did this out of love. She never charged a thing to anybody, whether they brought their child, their baby, their dog, their cat, themselves. She worked on all of them, and they all got better. She was an extraordinary human being. And even at 4 years old, I didn't start talking till I was 4 years old. I used to stand in the corner and watch her work on a person. They would be sitting in a chair, and she would work around them with her left and her right hand, and she'd be feeling the aura, and she'd see the aura. She was clairvoyant also. But because I was born into a family like that, I got a good dose of clairvoyant DNA from both parents as a result of that. And I feel very fortunate to have had that stroke of luck. And anyway, the people that she worked with, she never bragged, she never told anybody what she did. People just came to the house. And I can remember at 5 and 6 years old, I would go outside and there would be people around the house waiting in line to come in and be healed by her. That's how good she was. And so it's important to charging water today that you know that you have two small chakras, one in each palm here, because you're going to be using it when you do the charging of the water at a certain point. So there's a reason for bringing this in. And so water hears us speak and knows our thoughts. It is telepathic. And I said, the moment we think something, water picks up not only the sound vibration of our voice, but the telepathic image of it as well. And when we speak, water feels the electromagnetic energy, also the molecules, and is able to interpret it so that we can quote unquote talk to one another. I'm making this very simple. I'm not making this scientific. Physicists and quantum physics is definitely a part of what this is all about, but I want to keep it simple and straightforward because that way everybody will remember it. And water remembers what you said and also feels your emotions behind your speaking out loud to it or telepathically communicating with it. When you use telepathy, you're not only sending from your mind heart to somebody, but you're also sending your emotions right along with it. It's a full package, good, bad, or indifferent. So the thing is, the reason why I'm saying this about this is if you're going to work with water and you're going to charge water, you want to be in a calm, you don't have to be in a happy state, but you can be in a calm state and less stressed than more stressed. You shouldn't do this when you're angry, you're upset, you're worried, or you just feel totally exhausted. Don't try this method. It's not going to work well. So there are things that we need to do on our end to make this work right for both the water and for ourselves. Anyway, water hears and feels us. It can form images in a petri dish filled with water and then being put into a freezer. And in an hour's time, an image will appear. And this is the water's voice. We're going to get very much into that here in a few minutes. I was taught early on to honor the spirit of the water because every waterway has the spirit who has responsibility over that water and the condition of the water, the cleanliness or the dirtiness of it is the humans putting trash and putting chemicals into the water. That's not the spirit's fault. The spirit's trying to keep things clean, keep things moving, but they can't do it all themselves. And I said it did not matter if it was a trickling stream, a wide, slow-moving river, a pristine lake high in the Rocky Mountains, or the salty, vibrant energy and consciousness of Mother Ocean. And when I was 3 years old, I was born in San Diego, California, and my parents lived up above San Diego by about 10 miles. And she would take me to the tidal pools near La Jolla, California. If you ever get a chance to go out there, do, because they have pelicans, they have seals. The tidal pools are like beautiful gems and jewels in the rock that's there next to the ocean. And when the tides come in and out, it's incredible. The beauty and the color of each tide pool was forever an attraction of mine. I said, I can feel the thrill of being on my hands and knees, and the tidal pool like a magic mirror, showing colorful anemones, a small red octopus, a hermit crab, in her shell home upon her back, and the red starfish that was the size of my tiny hand. And I said I would lean down and kiss the surface of the water just because it was water and I knew it was alive. And my mother also told me it was alive. It had a spirit. I was so filled with joy, wonder, and excitement, and I felt such love embrace me as a result of that. And I said, growing up at Pacific Beach near San Diego, I said, I always loved my mother taking me to these pools. And there was also huge highways of long, slick kelp leaves. There was what they call a kelp forest about a quarter of a mile offshore, off La Jolla. And literally, it was like a forest. And a lot of otters lived there too. And I said, children of all ages galloped and laughed and played along the teasing wavelets of Mother Ocean. And some would bring shells from the dry sand and throw them into her water as a gift. When you watch the children along an ocean beach, if they see a shell, you see so many of them give it back to Mother Ocean to put it in the water so it can go back out. And children aren't taught this. It's just intrinsic for their love. And they know that Mom Ocean is alive. Believe me, she's alive. Stories I could tell you there. Not today, however. I said, others will find a stick and they will make a heart or draw other symbols in the wet sand, only to be taken by Mother Ocean's water with great joy later as the tide would come in and then the tide would go out. If you ever get a chance, or if this is something that draws you or it feels right for you to do, I'm always looking for a stick around, whether I am hiking in a forest or I'm at the ocean or I'm on a forest trail someplace. If I feel like the forest is not feeling good, I'll take a stick off the trail and I'll clear a spot and I will draw just exactly what this little girl is drawing, a heart. It's love. And symbols are so powerful. Symbols radiate the energy of what they are, and it is a continuous thing. It doesn't quit. The only time it will quit, possibly, and not really, is when it's, you scrub it out or the water tide removes the symbol. The energy of the symbol is still there and it is still working. Trust me on this. It is. So the next time that you're standing near a lake, a river, even a stream, you can create a symbol that means something to you, and the water, okay, or the land, the soil, will pick up your intention. And I said, don't be surprised if there's some kind of immediate synchronistic event that occurs because you did that. And it could be like a bird chirping and flying by and saying thank you, or it could be a butterfly that flies around you a couple of times. That's a thank you. And perhaps it's a fish jumping maybe from a lake or a stream not far away from where you are. That's a thank you. These are all signs that water is reacting favorably and with love toward you. And I said, one thing I do when I'm working with water is I always draw a heart or two or three in the mud or the sand before I leave. And I telepathically, from my heart, I thank the water for her kindness and her thoughtfulness. And a thank you is felt no matter what language of the symbol is. And it's a two-way street. You also get a blessing out of your kindness toward one of your relatives. Okay, this is where we really get into understanding what water can do for you. I said, water speaks in images to us too. I said, Masaru Emoto did many research tests on water in petri dishes and then froze them in a freezer. And then he would see images that the water created because of it. And he discovered that he could speak something loving from his heart to the water, and the image would appear to respond to the emotion of Dr. Emoto. And I said, conversely, Emoto would say something harsh to another petri dish of water, like, you're a bad spirit, for instance. And once frozen, an image would appear to show the anger coming from the human. And more recently, Veda Austin has done a great deal of research. She's from New Zealand, and she's got a couple of degrees in, I think, botany or biology. I believe it's biology, and this is what got her into it. And she did a lot and continues to do a lot of research on water in petri dishes, showing over and over again that water has emotions and can feel our emotions and put it into something that you can see absolutely in the frozen petri dish. It's just amazing. And water has the ability to understand our emotions and thoughts, whether they're spoken out loud or whether they're just thoughts in your head. And you can go visit her website. It's www.vedaAustin.com. And there's a graphic photo here. Here's a leaf that's caught in the water, frozen from another photograph to show how ice can create, with water support, wonderful images and symbols. And Veda just came out just this week, I think, with her first book, and it's called The Language of Water. I've already bought a copy. It's a $65 book, but she teaches you from beginning to end. I mean, and all these colored photos and all of these petri dishes with amazing images in them to show that water is sentient. It is sentient. Those little molecules can change depending upon how the human approaches them and what the human says to them. Because when you speak it, you also have an emotional part of that coming along with the words. That's why words have meaning so much. I said, water speaks in ice. And water tells you how it feels out in nature. And I said, check out these lake and river photos of ice designs. And I said, do you see anything in them? How do they feel to you? What does your intuition tell you? And remember that intuition is always connected with your heart. Intuition is the voice of the heart. Whereas our larynx goes to our left side of our brain, we can actually speak out loud in 3D here and be heard. But the heart can't and doesn't speak like that. It speaks through our intuition. And I said, do you see symbol in any of these? Or does the symbol remind you of something? I said, this is how you start utilizing that inner knowing. I said, if you see something in ice, an ice picture, then pay attention to it and what it means to you. And again, whatever it means is going to be intuitive. It isn't necessarily, what I see in it. For instance, this one photo, black and white, that's in the center. To me, it looks like a heart. Now, to somebody else, it might look like a cluster of grapes. Okay, it doesn't matter. We're both right. There's no wrongs here. But however, that petri dish of ice, it's going to convey to you, back to you, exactly what was said to it, and how you take it is up to you. Because different people, I mean, you got 3 different things here that you're going, okay, what does this one remind me of? What does this one remind me of? And everybody's going to have a different reality and reaction to it, and that's fine too, as long as you get an intuition and feeling on it. That's the important thing here, is letting your intuition speak to you. We're not crazy. And I said, creating communication with water. I said, here are some ways I have been taught and experienced communication with water. Charging water was discovered by Oceana Fastwolf, and back in the 1970s. So she was way ahead of Masaru Emoto and Veda Austin. But she was indigenous, and the indigenous people are so tied, so 100% with Mother Earth and all her relations. So, of course, she'll never get anybody saying, oh, this is the person that started this, at least in the United States. She'll never get that. But I know it, and that's all that's important, because I was there and I saw it happen. And I did it, and she taught us how to do it. And now I'm going to teach you how to do it. Besides charging water, we had paper remedies, where you could write a homeopathic remedy on it with a potency, and then you could set a glass of water down on that written, whatever it was, and let it stay there for about 15, 20 minutes, maybe an hour. The water's going to absorb that writing, and then it's in the molecules of the water so that you can take it as a homeopathic remedy. I did that for 10 years with a group of people from around the world. I had about 125 people from about 15 different countries. And there was times, because a lot of these people, they came to me because they wanted to learn homeopathy, and I was willing to teach them a course in it. And the problem is that a lot of these people were from foreign countries, and they didn't have a homeopathic pharmacy in a town. They didn't live in towns. So rural people. And if they wanted to get an actual remedy, it might take them 50 to 100 miles one way to get a homeopathic pharmacy in a town, the nearest town. And so I just cut to the chase, because I'd already had training through Oceana in the 1970s and early 80s. I said, look, let's write a paper remedy. Let's write down, let's say somebody fell and hurt themselves, and it's a major cut or whatever, and they don't have anything to stop it except pressure on it and a bandage. And if you knew Arnica montana, you wrote that on there. And if it was very severe, you might be 200 C or a 1M. And it will stop the bleeding. Literally, it'll stop it, just like that. And that was because it was written on a piece of paper. The glass of water was set over it for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then a teaspoon of the water was given to the child or to whoever was bleeding out fairly bad, and the bleeding would stop. This isn't voodoo, and this isn't somebody making it up. These are real live instances where I worked with paper remedies hundreds of times with people overseas, and they would do this with the water, and it worked every time. So there is something to this. I've seen it over and over again over the decades. So besides paper remedies, we have Masaru Emoto. He's a researcher. And I strongly suggest that if you have the money and if you're really drawn to understanding how much you can work with water, get his book. It's called The Hidden Messages in Water. And what he was doing was speaking directly to the water with his voice and his thoughts, or even telepathy. And then he would take that petri dish that had the water, put it into the freezer component, let it freeze for an hour, and out would come some kind of illustration or drawing in ice for you to see. And I said, these aren't the only ways, but these are the ones that I know about. And I said, in some instances, decades of experiences, I said, all you need is a glass of water. I said, we're basically all aquanauts exploring the world of water like we never really realized it before, but how much it's going to help us. Okay, so I have to give my due to my niece, Eileen Nauman. She's a graphic illustrator, and you can see here on the right of your screen this nice, simple little glass with a little gemstone in it. And I think illustrations help more than anything else when you are teaching something like this. Anyway, here's how Oshana taught me in the early 80s. She discovered this in the 1970s. She put it through rigorous science types of things. She was at Berkeley in the 1970s and went to the university. And she did a lot of scientific testing with the instruments, electrical instruments they had at that time to see if you charge water, does the water without it, it's at this particular place. But after it's charged, you see the needle move to this place instead of there. So you know something went on, even though in the 1970s, we didn't have the quantum physics that we have today to truly understand that we're at the molecular atomic level with this stuff. And they are finally starting to get different instrumentation that can actually prove it, that we're not all crazy, that there really is something there. But what I want you to do is, here's your little glass of water, okay? And you can fill it about a third full. All right, you don't have to fill it up to the brim, but what you want to do is you want to find a stone, because she was into gemstones, so we're going to start with the gemstones. And she always used what we would call mine rough. And mine rough means it is the stone like you see on this left side. You'll see this glass bowl, and you'll see a couple of emeralds stones out of the bowl. That's mine rough. It's as good as if you went out and bought a $20,000 emerald faceted gemstone, which you don't have to do, because the energy of an emerald is the energy of an emerald. It does not change. It's fixed. Okay, so you can buy emerald mine rough for $1 or $2 for an ounce. You only need a couple of pieces, and they have to be small. They don't have to be large, and bigger doesn't make better here, folks. So don't think that you've got to spend a lot of money on this. You don't. Just get a small piece. For instance, the piece that I like is outside the bowl, but it's the top one. It's a small one, but it's a nice one. It's got good color in it. That would be the one that I would put into this glass that is on the right-hand side of your screen here. And you put it in there, and that's the first step to this. So you get your mind run. Let's say you like ruby, and there's all kinds of books out there on the energy of gemstones. So you can read up on that. Everybody has a favorite gemstone. Mine happens to be the emerald. But whatever it is, it can help you, because what you love or like or are drawn to is probably your first charging of water that you're going to do for yourself. Just make this easy on yourself. What's your favorite? Find Mine Run, buy a small half an ounce or an ounce. It'll get to you from the internet. Or if you have a rock shop near you or something like that, that's great. But most people don't have rock shops. But you can get this online. And be sure and look at whatever the costs are, because some people will rook you and give you a story. When Mine Run is Mine Run, they can't facet Mine Run. They can't do anything with it. They throw it away. They throw it into a tailings hill. All right. And it sits there for the next 100,000 years. Now, this is the important part, and I'm going to show it to you. And also, my niece did a nice job of showing it. But this is what Oshana's did. And remember the two small chakras you have in your palm? Native Americans are very aware that there was energy and heat here, okay, between these two. And what you do is you put your hands together just like this. You don't have to use a lot of strength or anything. Just gently put them together. Be relaxed about this, because if you tighten up, you're actually going to stop the energy from flowing out like it should. The moment that we tighten up our muscles, it slows it down. So all you want to do is just be in a happy frame of mind, or just a calm state of mind. Put your hands together. And then what you're going to do is you're going to put them over the glass that has the gemstone in it. And what you're going to do is you're going to start rubbing like this. All right. And when you rub, you want to make, if you can see how I've curved this hand, it isn't like this. It's like this. What I'm trying to do is when I curve that hand, I want this chakra to meet this chakra, and that is where the energy comes from. And your hands are going to get so hot they can get a bright red. I've seen people with red hands. They're going, "Oh my God, what did I do to myself?" I mean, this is really fun, especially when you're first starting and these things start happening because you feel the heat. The heat can be an icy cold heat. I know it sounds crazy that ice with heat, but a lot of people do feel that. Some people will begin to feel tingles, okay, or like a shivery goosebump type thing. That means that those chakras are working with one another, okay, as you're doing this. And when you do this, your whole focus, your heart is in what you're doing. All right. You are making this charged water for you to drink, to help you, to make you feel better, to help your organs, your different systems. And you can sit there and sip it. It will stay that way for 24 hours. Oceana did a lot of work with the electricity of putting the probe in, charging water, and she'd leave the probe in and would get a reading on it, and then she'd take the probe out, and she came back at 12 hours and there was still energy but not maybe half as much, and then she'd come back 12 hours after that, which is 24 hours. She'd put the probe in and there would be no change in the water. In other words, it was like nobody charged the water at all. Water was back to its normal state. So when you do this with charged water, you got 24 hours. You can put it into the refrigerator or you can leave it out in the open, doesn't matter. It's up to you. It makes no difference. But within 24 hours, it will dissipate. All right, so you've done this and you want to make sure that your chakras are really together, and then you really press them to one another and you just start working that energy and you feel it just starting to heat up everywhere in your hands. And at a certain point, it gets really hot. And what you're going to do is you're going to open up your hands like this. You're not going to separate them. It's like you're opening up and it's one. Keep these together. Then you put your hands down like this over the glass of water and you hold it there. And from your chakras, visualize the color and repeat the name of the stone, the emerald. It's emerald water, charged water. And see that energy coming from these chakras down into the water itself. And you might hold it there for about maybe 15 seconds to 30 seconds. The next illustration is that after you have done that for, say, 30 seconds, you're going to then, in a counterclockwise motion, just above the rim of the glass, you're not down on the glass, you're at least 6 inches to 12 inches above it, and you're going to do a counterclockwise circle 4 times. And the 4 times is for the 4 seasons of the year, it's for the medicine wheel, and it's for healing purposes. And once you've done that, you break your hands apart and you fling off the extra energy that you've collected on your hands at that point. So this kind of goes through the whole thing. All right. We've got our hands over here on the left. And after we do it 4 times, we're going to break our hands apart. We're going to shake them off. And the next thing we're going to do is get a spoon, take the stone out of the water. Okay. I can't tell you how many times people forget to do that, but take it out. And then what you want to do is once it is out, then take the teaspoon and put it in your mouth. That's all you need to do is 1 teaspoon. You don't need to glug the whole thing. More doesn't make it better, people. You don't drink gallons of this. It's just simply taking a teaspoon of water, putting it into your mouth. And it depends upon where you're at, how stressed out you are or not, or whatever's going on. You can put this water into the dog's bowl and it'll last for 24 hours. And the dog, as it laps up the water throughout the day, gets that healing energy from that particular gemstone for whatever the issue is that the dog has. All right. This is an example. With a baby, all you do is you might want to put it, if it's a little teeny tiny baby, you might want to put it into a glass bottle because I do not use plastic. We've got microplastics in everybody and everything now. It's going to shorten everybody's life as a result of that. But you want a baby bottle that is glass. And if it has a rubber nipple on it, that's fine. But you can actually put the charged water into a little bit of it, maybe a quarter cup of the water into the baby bottle, and let the baby suck a couple of times on it and get some of the charged water into its body. And that's all you need to do. You don't need to have them take the whole thing. This isn't about more is better. It's not. You're dealing with energy. It doesn't take a whole lot of energy to make a difference and to get all the other molecules of the body reacting differently because this is here. Okay, when you drink the charged water, I'm trying to kind of make this less than an hour long, and some of this is just simply extra information on it. The emerald is on the right-hand side of this graphic, this photographic, but I really like the graphic here on the left because the water is like molecules and it's everywhere. You know, when it's humidity, you have molecules that are heavy with water. Even though you can't see them, it's working on. You know how you feel when the temperature is hot and then you've got 80 or 90% humidity. It sucks. So this goes back to what I was saying before. These were the people from the Athena list and the people that were on it. And I've pretty much gone over that. No sense in repeating myself. Let's see. There was a story here. Yeah. Okay, here's a true story. One of my people that was on the Athena list, his name was Gao, and he's Italian. He's from Italy, and he's a farmer in Italy, in central Italy. Okay, here it is. Gao lived in Italy, and he had a 6-year-old daughter who suddenly out of nowhere developed a high 105 F temperature. And he emailed me and asking what homeopathic remedy could be used based upon her symptoms. And, you know, I told him, I said that I didn't have it. The closest pharmacy to him was 100 miles away. And I don't know if you've never gone overseas, you don't realize how expensive gas is. And it's sold by the liter, and it's like $5, $6, $7 a gallon, or not even a gallon, by the liter. It's horribly expensive. And this was the time I was frantic because my chief guide told me to write the name of the remedy, Aconitum Napellus, 30C, on a piece of paper. And aconite is world famous among homeopaths. It's one of the main remedies for sudden high spike fevers, especially in children or animals or adults or elderly. It doesn't matter. It helps all of them. But children tend to get these very high spikes out of nowhere, and it's tough to deal with. Anyway, my CG instructed me to fill the glass, the clear glass. You can't use colored glass. You can't use a blue one, a green one, a yellow one. It has to be clear glass. You cannot use plastic. And to just put a half a glass of water in it and to set the glass down on the paper, which is what he did. And because he was so frantic of his daughter, I said, okay, 5 minutes is fine. Get her a teaspoon and put it in her mouth. And I wasn't sure it was going to work or not because Ocean always said 15 minutes to 30 minutes after charged water. So Geo gave his daughter a teaspoon every 5 minutes, which is what I told him to do. And 15 minutes later, the temperature was down to 102 Fahrenheit. And that's a 3-degree drop. And I said, I was shocked and stunned and more than anything else relieved. I said, I had no idea that one could write a homeopathic remedy on a piece of paper, let it sit for 5 minutes under a glass of water, while the energy of the remedy mingled with the energy molecules of the water. I said, I was relieved that it was bringing down his daughter's fever. So I told him to give her another teaspoon of the remedy every 5 minutes for another 15 minutes. And he did that. When he took his daughter's temperature the last time, he cried with joy because it was back to 98.6 or 7, which is normal. And I said it's well known in homeopathic circles that this particular remedy is good for what we call spike fevers. And this is where we're mixing the use of the water. But see, we didn't do Ocean's ceremonial way of doing it at all. And so that was a step up for me because of this crisis that had happened with one of my people. And I'm particularly sensitive toward babies and young children because they're helpless. And so these things really get to me too. I mean, Gail was crying, I was crying, the little girl was fine, but we're crying out of relief, a sense of relief that it worked. And so that's how Paper Remedies was born on Athena. And we did that for, I think, 10 or 12 years. Anyway, going back to Masaru Emoto's book in early 2000s was another water step for me. I said I read the book. I was amazed at his research. And he was just speaking to the water. He wasn't writing a paper remedy and then setting the glass of water down on it. He was simply talking to the water. And that just blew my mind. And I began to think, my gosh, he's right. These are molecules. We're all made of molecules. Why couldn't we have a confab with one another anytime that we really wanted to? But by this time, I knew through Oshana and then later on the paper remedies that water was special and unique, and that it was a living, conscious, sentient being, and that it had everyone's best vested interest at heart. And heart is the right word here. I said, I've never seen water behave in any other way when asked to do something either for myself or animals or family or friends or even strangers. And I remember having a lot of stress and sleepless nights, and I desperately needed to catch up on sleep. And I would ask the spirit of the water in the glass that I held in my hands if it would allow me a full 8 hours of undisturbed sleep. And then I drank a sip of the water. I thanked it telepathically and from my heart, and I set it on the kitchen counter and I went to bed. And I slept 8 uninterrupted hours. You cannot know how good that felt. And I said, from that time on, I would first thank the water for being there for me, and then I needed help. And would it help me sleep a second night in a row? And yes, it did. And I would always thank the spirit of the water for helping me and blessing it and sending my gratefulness and love for what it could do for all of us. And when working with water in this way, it is best that you be humble. You don't approach this like you're God's gift to women or whatever, regardless of what your gender is. You come with humbleness and humility because they know a heck of a lot more and they're a heck of a lot more intelligent than we are in so many different ways. But you can ask for help. And I said, then thank it, send it from your heart, your gratefulness and love, and take a spoonful in your mouth. And I says, I always empty out the water the next night or morning. I said, I start out with a clean glass for the next request, and it will work for you. If it doesn't work, it's that you don't believe that it'll work for you. That's simple. So it is a wonderful discovery. But with me starting back in the 1970s, and then actually getting into paper remedies in the 1980s, and I were way ahead of what was to come with Emoto Masaru and later Veda Austin. But it's been like taking steps toward it through different people who have different experiences with it, but they're having positive experiences and they're having people that really help these people with their symptoms, whatever they happen to be. So I use the various water techniques in my homeopathic practice with my clients that are around the world. And they would email me or call me on the phone and say how sick they were or something was going on. I would figure out the remedy and the potency. And paper remedies work just as well in those cases. It's a prescription from somebody that knows what they're doing to the client or the patient who desperately doesn't want to feel like crap and they want those symptoms gone. And it does. And I said, one of the big ones is, hey, if you're a person that gets migraines, all right, what you could do, even if you weren't a homeopath, it does not matter. See, this is where the deck is for everybody. It isn't just for a few. And it isn't for somebody that's educated in a certain way either. Water works with all of us on every level. As long as we're heart-centered and we come with humbleness and we need help, water will help us. And I've seen this in some very life and death types of things, or a bee sting when the person was going into anaphylaxis and they didn't have Benadryl or any homeopathic remedy that like Apis mellifica or carbolic acid. Both are excellent for stopping anaphylaxis and stopping you from having your throat close up and you suffocate and die. That's what anaphylaxis is. So you can get to a glass of water and just hold the water and ask it to stop the allergy reaction. You're probably not going to use the word anaphylaxis because it's a medical term, okay? But you can just ask the water to stop the allergy reaction, to let you live. And just put your hands around it, hold it close to your heart, and ask humbly. That's all you need to do. If you have nothing else, if you don't have any Benadryl in the house, I think every house should have some, okay? Because there's so many people with so many different allergies now. But if you don't, the water could save your life. And I said, I really love this method because it doesn't cost the person any money. That I like too. And I said, most of my clientele are poor people. And I said, and most of them couldn't afford a small homeopathic first aid kit to keep in their house either. That costs at least between $50 to $100. And there's a lot of people that don't have that kind of money. But you do have water. And now you've got some methods that can help save a life. And so I said, where do you get your drinking water? This is the next thing. In January 9th of 2024, AP News had this mind-blowing article on the internet, and I said it's worth everyone reading and understanding that this is a huge medical debacle that will happen within 250,000 invisible nanoplastic particles in the liter of bottled water. And it's more than in bottled water. They have now found that nanoplastic, microplastics, is in our ocean. It is in everybody's drinking water. Can you imagine at the molecular level that plastic, every time you drink, you're putting those plastic particles into your body? Do you realize what's going to happen? It's going to shorten your life. That's just for starters. And so what you have to do is, if you can afford it, to get what they call a reverse osmosis water system. And I think it probably costs a couple $100, but I'll tell you what, a couple $100 versus how much it's going to shorten your life, or symptoms that are going to arise in one of your systems, your organ systems, like your kidneys or your liver or your heart. The plastics are everywhere in us. They have been testing this, and it's showing up in everybody. Nobody is immune to this. But if you can get reverse osmosis water, you're taking out roughly, depending upon some of the other things, clearly filtered. You might want to write this down. Clearly filtered is CLEARLY, and then filtered FILTERED. Clearly filtered. It is a US California company. I've been working with them for years, and they have devised filters that filter out anywhere between 98 to 99% with their filters. Now, we started buying them about 4 years ago, and we noticed immediately when we put the filters in that it was far superior to the reverse osmosis that we had. We could tell the difference in the taste of the water, okay? And they're not inexpensive, but not only does Clearly Filtered clean the water, they clean it up about 356 different chemical things that can give us cancer and make our lives miserable and get us unhealthy are all filtered out. And I don't know what that means to you. If you have to spend $350 to get the 3 canister sets that you have to put in once a year, and then you have to buy them again every year, I mean, $300 versus what is your lifeline going to be like? And what organs or what systems in your body are going to start to degrade terribly when they didn't have to, when we didn't have water pollution. But now we are inundated with the microplastics, the nanoplastics, and there's no way to get rid of them. The only way to get rid of them is to filter them out. And now, for the first time, Clearly Filtered has come up, and they're a very scientific company. They can filter out nanoplastics with this next generation that they've just put out on the market, and it's about $350, that it will take care. They've proven it scientifically. This is all science. They've proven that with the nanoplastics that are in the water, this new filter that they have devised and worked with to do for years will filter out 99.9% of the nanoplastic. That's huge. That can give us our lifetime with far better health, for starters. Nobody likes being sick. Nobody likes getting diabetes. Nobody likes to get heart disease or whatever. And this can stop it. They've just put this out this year. And so we went and got it. It's about another $350. And the thing is that they give you a big picture, and there is a carbon filter on it. And depending upon how much you use it, I use it for cooking things. I use it for drinking. I use it on my plants. I use it on my dog. All right. He too gets clean water, just like we do. And it takes about 2 to 3 months. You have to change filters if you're using it that much. But what is your health worth? Does your mind work right? Or are you starting to get forgetful? Or you can't put 2 words together? Or just endless things that these microplastics are going to do to us. We don't know what's going to happen with them. They've just discovered this. And if you notice, the arc of heart and asthma especially has just shot up like this in the last 20 years. It's horrendous. And you're asking yourself, why all of a sudden do we have so many people with asthma? Guess what? It's the nanoplastics. I will lay you odds. I can't prove it yet, but it's going to come out, and we're going to know these things probably in another couple of years. In the meantime, that is the safest drinking water I can give you. Now, if you can't afford it, okay. The next best thing that I would tell you to do is hold that glass of water, or put your hands, if you have a gallon dispenser of water, always keep it in glass. Do not put it in plastic. Keep it in glass. Put your hands on the glass and just come to the water and say, please clear your water of the nanoplastics. Or you could say something like, please give me clean, healthy water to drink. And I've had people try this, and you can try it too. Okay. You can take maybe a quarter to a half a cup of in one glass from your tap. All right. And you can go ahead and just drink it, taste it, and also see if it has a smell. Then take another glass, put that one aside, fill it about half full, put it between your hands like this, and talk to it and ask it to give you clean, healthy water to drink. And then take a taste of it and smell it. I don't have to make you believe this. All you have to do is try it and prove it to yourself. And once you prove it, then that is another way. If you can't afford these new filters coming out, they're a breakthrough for nanoplastics. My God. So at least ask the water to give you healthy water that you are going to be putting into your body, or for your child, or your dog, or your cat, or whatever, or your horse. I have gone so far as when we had an Arabian horse farm in the 1980s in Ohio, we had huge, big water tubs, and I was always a nitpicker that if you leave water in an aluminum tank too long, it's going to gather bacteria and you got to clean it out and scrub it out. I did that about once every 2 weeks, and people made fun of me, but I knew what could happen. And this was back in the 1980s. And I began, and I know that stuff grows on the sides, the insides of these aluminum tanks, for the animals. And you can literally run your hand into the water and down the side, and you can feel the slickness of it, or you can feel that there's things there. And what I started doing was I went over, just out of curiosity, after Oceana did her charging water, I would just put my hands over the water. I would do this. I'd put my hands over the water, and the tank could be 6 feet wide, and I can't do it like that, but I would just do it over the spot where I could reach it. And I would see the energy of the emerald going into the water to clean it. The way I proved that it worked is that after 2 weeks of doing that, I would put my hand on the inside of the water tank, and if it worked, I wasn't going to get the slick kind of nubby stuff that the slime begins to build around within the water. It wasn't there. So I kept doing it like that. Nobody told me. It's just, well, if this concept works, it's got to work for everything else too, if it's viable. And it is. But that's, again, I know most people don't have $350 to spend like that. But what is the quality of your health, of your family, and your animals? That's the only something that you have to wrestle with and you have to figure out. And if you can't, at least I'm telling you some of the other ways that I have used it and proven it to myself that it still works. If you got a dirty glass of water, just say, please give me a healthy glass of water with nothing in it that's going to harm my body, and then drink it. But try the taste test. That's the first thing with your tap water, and see what happens. I would love to hear from you. I love the miraculousness of this. So going back, I said water is giving us life. And I wanted to share this with you because there's very few people who will know about this, but it's pretty cool. He was a friend, my shamanic student, Michael, was a friend to Dr. Emoto, who really opened up the whole idea that water, could talk to us and water could help us in many different ways. And I wanted to share this email from him, and this was from several years ago. He says, Dr. Emoto wrote me this formula for purifying water. He says it's in Japanese, an ancient shamanic formula he uses. He gave it to me to help take care of the groundwater where they were at in France, where they met each other. And they were working with a lake that had been particularly polluted. And that's what he's referring to in this email. He says, I've asked for the translation of the shamanic formula to be sent as I forget. And he said, but it is cryptic. And he said, like homeopathy, you fix these words on paper to a water source. See, they were working in France on lakes and rivers that have been very, very polluted over there. And he says, I've asked for the translation to be sent. And then it's called the Grand Invocation, and it's the grand prayer of the Japanese. And I said, in parentheses, I said, and even though you don't know Japanese, just write these words on a piece of paper and set the glass or bottle of water on it for 24 hours. And then you can pour it into the water source you're choosing 24 hours later. And so the grand prayer is here. And one of my copy editor is married to a Japanese woman and they live in Japan. He's Australian. But I went to him and I said, Ross, I said, can you tell me what this grand prayer says in Japanese? Because I don't know. And so he asked his wife and she says, oh, yes. She says, that's old Japanese. And she said, only the priests, only the spiritual monks among the Japanese, in the Japanese different religions they have there, speak in the old Japanese language. And she knew somebody who did. And so what it means is, and I've got it in red here, it says, this is the shamanic Japanese formula for making water clean. He says, the infinite power of the universe condensed, and the true era of Daiwa took shape. Daiwa is God, goddess, whoever you believe in. So if you wrote that on a piece of paper, set the glass on it, or set a quart of water on it, or set a gallon of water on it. I'd put a gallon on it, set it there, let it stay for 24 hours, and then go ahead and use the water and drink from it. It will work, but you don't have to believe me. You just have to try it. And you can test it out by doing that two simple things. Get a tap water, smell it, drink it a little bit, test it, set it aside. Do a second one. And then ask the water to give you clean, healthy water to drink. Taste it, smell it, and see if you don't notice the difference. Not everything has to be complex, but what we're really looking here is at our hearts. You know, the great love connection that we all have with one another. The Native Americans, we always say all our relations, we mean everything and everybody. From the worm in the ground to the eagle in the sky, no matter if you're human or animal, does not matter. We are all related. We're one heart. And so if you come to it with that demeanor, with that honesty and that humbleness from your heart, it's going to work. So that's basically it. I just wanted to show you the water pioneer, Dr. Masaru Emoto. And his big thing was that words carry meaning, emotions, intent, and energy. And here is his book, The Hidden Messages of Water. He was an incredible, I honestly believe he was a master who's come down into physical form to give us this gift of life and water. And the fact that my shamanic student knew him and worked with him over in France. And then in Dr. Emoto giving him this sacred shamanic Japanese formula from old Japanese, from their religions, and that always came from the heart. So to me, meant a whole lot. And there's a few more people right here on top. Where can I learn more? Veda Austin, she's very beautiful. She's a beautiful young woman. She is all heart. She's just an amazing miracle walking around here on earth in a human body. And we are so lucky to have her. And then another one, Dr. Rupert Sheldrake. If you want to get into the science of it, here's the guy that you want to work with. He discovered the morphic resonance around everything. And again, we're getting into quantum physics here. This isn't my bag, but it may be somebody's bag out there. And he is commensurate to Veda and to Dr. Emoto Masaru. These three people have really helped us get a step up into understanding water. Now, here's two more. And these are pioneers that have now taken the next step from these three. One of them is Professor Pollock's book. And it's called The Fourth Phase of Water. I've put it there. I read that book. Okay. I can tell you that 3/4 of it is very high science and biology and chemistry, and I would sometimes fall asleep because it's just too much for my brain to take. All you need to do is, I said, read the last chapter in the book first. All right. He has established there are 4 phases to water, not 3, but 4. And he's proven it over and over again at the University of Washington. And it's water, vapor, where it's water beginning to move into ice, and then ice and fog. And those are the 4 phases. And his book, it's extraordinary. And he's such a gentle man, and he's a very loving person. He's just a wonderful being. And I have his book, and I strongly suggest that even if you just run to the library and go find the 4th phase of water, all right, by Professor Pollack, go to the last chapter and just sit down and read it. You don't have to take it out of the library. Just sit down and read that last chapter, and it puts it all together in a nice, neat, tidy, understandable format for the rest of us who are not scientists or physicists or quantum physicists. Then the last one is Dr. Luc Montagnier. He was a Nobel Prize winner, and he has important information and videos here on water that should not be missed, and they are on YouTube. And I strongly advise that if you really want to start getting a framework and understanding how powerful water can be to our health and to our lives and the longevity that we could have, these are the people who were the cornerstones of it. And Dr. Luc Montagnier did so many different tests to prove that water and paper remedy information could be sent through a computer to another computer in another country, and there it was. And so you've got lots of good reading material here. And if you're more science-minded, you're going to be looking at Dr. Sheldrake, Professor Pollack, and Dr. Montagnier. If you're more spiritual, you're going to be looking at Emoto Masaru and also Veda Austin, who is the youngest of this coming generation, who's just leading the way in it. And I can hardly wait to get her book. I think it's going to be wonderful. So these are ways for you to be whole as best that you can. And so just remember, water is life and life is water. And that is not a joke. That is the truest thing you will hear. So if you want, I have a video on this that's similar to what I've given to you today. But I have other energy things over there. If you're interested, you can go take a look. Also, Oak has his own YouTube, and I'm sure he's got lots of stuff over there that's really interesting also, and very helpful to you as a person and having a better quality of life. So that's basically it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's amazing that you're able to share this study that you've been working with for so many years. I think the fact that it's not just you're sharing this as something that you've heard, but it's like a deep study. And just for those of you who are listening, Eileen is, how long have you been doing homeopathy? It's like you have several books on it.
Yeah, since 1970.
Okay, yeah, so very
Decades.
long time working with homeopathy. If you guys aren't familiar with homeopathy, it is remedies that have a very small amount of a particular material, and that material will effectively heal the body.
Basically, homeopathy is energy medicine. And what that means is that there is no crude substance left in any of the pills or the tablets that we dispense as a homeopath to a patient. It's simply an energy signature. And this is what we are working with when we work with water too. It's all along the same line. It's molecular. And they're finding out more and more, the water especially, they're really surging ahead, if you'll pardon the pun, surging ahead like a tsunami, showing that water and its elements has conscious, sentient understanding of us, that we can impregnate it with our heart and with our needs. And as long as it's above board, you can't say, oh, I want to poison so-and-so and have them drink it. The water won't do that. Okay. That is what I call rubber band karma in action. That ain't going to happen. You can only work with water if you come from the heart. That's just it. And the same with homeopathy. And you're not dealing with any crude substance, which is why the AMA has such a problem with it. They're just saying it's the placebo effect. I'm going, no, it's not, because it affects, placebo effects basically affects about 30 to 40% of the people. Okay. They can give, the AMA gives them a sugar pill instead of the real thing. And if you have 100 people, 30 to 40 of them, whatever that pill is that they were told, it's going to work like that in their system. But the other 60 to 70%, that ain't going to work at all. And so the placebo effect is nothing but cover. And they still can't explain the other 60 or 70% that he's getting well, or it saved a person's life. As a matter of fact, homeopathy is the #2 medicine in the world, period. It's practiced in almost every country in the world. And in some countries, it's the only medicine in their country. Like India is a really good example of that. Everywhere in Europe, no matter what drugstore you go to, there's going to be what they call AMA, traditional medications, both over-the-counter, OTC, as well as prescription. But on another part of the pharmacy is nothing but homeopathic remedies by the hundreds, because we have over 5,000 remedies so far that we work with. And the homeopath has to find the correct one based upon the person's symptom picture. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, real quick.
Got it. Wait, so I thought that when it comes to, for example, when I've taken Apis, I thought that there was like a tiny bit of bee sting or something in there.
Okay, we're getting into the weeds here for just a second, okay, in homeopathy, so to speak. We have different potencies, and X means 1 part of the substance to 9 parts of sucrose, sugar, or milk lactose, or whatever, or if it's in a dilution, all right, water, alcohol, all right, and then they succuss it, and it will then go from 1X to 2X to 3X until about 30X. And at that point, you have no crude substance left in it. All you have is the signature of the honeybee, the Apis mellifica, and it works. I've saved lives with Apis mellifica on anaphylactic people who were going to die and had no way to get to the ER in time, had no car. And that's where you prove something, whether you know how it got there, okay, which is quantum physics. This is quantum physics. They're just barely opening up where we are at as homeopaths working with molecular energy. And even homeopaths are not scientists, but we see it working every day. And I have saved so many people over the years from asthmatic attacks and that type of thing with Apis. It isn't even funny. And none of them had a crude substance, because if you don't go high, they could die. And you've got to have like a 1M or a 10M or a 50M. And so you have X's that are 1 to 10, you have C's that are 1 to 100, and then you have the M's, which is 1 to 1,000 in ratio. So it gets more refined until the fact is that there's just no crude substance left in it. It's just energy.
I heard that sometimes the smallest dose can be the most powerful. Is that true?
That's right. That's what they're talking about.
Got it.
They understand what it can do because they see it working, okay? They do not understand the scientific mechanics, nor do I, or any other homeopath, unless they are on a cutting edge of quantum physics. Even they can't explain it. But they are getting to the point to where they're going to have instrumentation that will show that whatever is in that is active. And they can they can see that when they do something that it reacts. And with homeopathy, once it's in an energy form and it doesn't have any crude substance left in it, it's good for thousands of years, because you can't destroy energy. You cannot destroy energy, Oak. Think about, this is science we're talking about. Energy cannot be destroyed. Energy can be changed, but it cannot be destroyed. We have Samuel Hahnemann discovered homeopathy in Germany, in Europe, 300 years ago. And he showed the method of how it worked. But he couldn't explain any more than I can, or you can, or even a quantum physicist at this point, as to how it works the way it works. They'll understand it one of these days. I don't care how it works. What I care is the outcome, okay? I only care for my patient. I only care for them living and not dying. And asthma is a horrible thing. And we have some great remedies for it to stop it, okay? And it's like I'm dealing with somebody that has a knee joint problem. And what's happened is she's 6 foot tall and she's a big woman. She's built like a man. weight-wise and muscular-wise. But she's a woman, and she's a very nice woman, and I like her very much. And we're good friends. But what I noticed with her when she came and visited a few days ago is that she was leaning forward like this. Instead of being up like this, she was leaning forward. And I said, "Why are you hunched over like that? Is there a problem with your back?" She says, "No." But she said, "I try and do that so that people don't think I'm some sort of a giant or something." And I said, "Oh, for God's sake, straighten up." But what's happened, because she's done that her whole life, and she's in her 60s now, and she's probably around 250 pounds. Okay, 6 foot, 250 pounds. And she has literally worn away the top part of her knee joint. Okay, the bottom part of it in her lower leg, literally the bone has been shaved away over time so that she doesn't have any bone left there, which then she has knee pain all the time. Well, when she came and visited me a couple of days ago, probably about 4 days ago, I gave her a remedy for the bone pain, and it was rutagravelins, and add a 30C to see if it would even stop it, because she was in such misery with such pain. She couldn't take a step without pain. Knee pain is usually nerve pain. And it's sharp, it's cutting, and it's deep. And so she took a 30C, and we got to talking, and she was sitting there. And I said, "Why, about 15, 20 minutes. I said, "Why don't you get up and see what that knee's doing now?" And she got up and she took a few steps, and her face just like, and I said, "Is it feeling better?" She said, "I don't have any pain." I said, "Really?" And she walked some more, and she said, "Did that white pill do that?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "It's rutagravelins. Its common name is rue, R-U-E, for herbalist out there. Okay. But it's a homeopathic remedy. There is no substance in it except the energy signature of it at 30C for that day." And then I thought, I'm going to try 200C on her, because you see, we've got proof in the homeopathic world that bone can be regrown and come back. Okay. We've actually got scientific data, x-rays to prove it. Okay, from different people all over the world. It can grow bone back, and it can strengthen your bones too. And so I knew that, and I've seen it anyway in my own practice. And so I gave her 200C. Well, it knocked her out. And I warned her before I gave it to her. I said, "Listen, this is a medium-sized dose." I said, "If it's the correct remedy, you're going to get very tired." Because I said, "Your vital force, we all own a vital force. This is what keeps us alive and healthy, is our vital force. It's unseen, but it's there. And our vital force would take that medicine in and go, 'Oh, this is wonderful. This is exactly what I needed.' And it's going to divert as much energy to it as it can to fix that knee." And when that happens, people get tired and sleepy, and they want to go to sleep. And that's exactly what she did. She slept for about 3 hours. And when she finally got up and she came out to the kitchen, I said, "How are you feeling?" She says, "I have absolutely no pain in my knee." And since then, she hasn't had. And I gave her 200C and a 1M to take home with her, so that if something started, to give me a call, and I would give her certain information, and she would take another dose of some potency, whether it would be a 200C or a 1M. Didn't really matter at that point. And I told her, I said, "It can grow the bone back." And she just looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, "No," I said, "Homeopathy with the right remedy can grow bone back." And I said, "We've got proof of it. We've got pictures of it. We got x-rays of it in so many different people around the world. It's not even funny. You can't say that it's a placebo, because people can't, on a placebo, grow their own bones back. At least I haven't seen it happen. Maybe it does, and I just don't know about it. And I'm willing to leave that without saying a direct yes or no. If I say yes or no, I know from personal experience. I know from the experience of myself, my family, my animals, my horses, my dogs, my cats, my clients around the world. It works. And if you're in Europe, you are so lucky. You can walk into any pharmacy, and it's so beautiful to see hundreds, if not thousands, of homeopathic remedies. And you just walk up to the counter and say, "Give me blah, blah, blah at 30C. It's a done deal. You pay for it, you walk out, and that's it, man. You don't need a prescription. They know it's safe. All right. The Europeans know that it's safe. And so do the people in the US and all around the world who use it. Okay. The disbelievers are the ones that never tried it and they poo-poo it, and that's fine. Go ahead, suffer, see if I care. That's not my problem, that's yours. But the people that come to me, I can help them with the homeopathy. I can help them with the water. There's just many tools to healing, many, and not one size fits all. Some people are going to love homeopathy. The water is going to appeal to probably water signs like Cancer and Scorpio. Those people in Pisces, the water is going to be very meaningful to them. And they will probably be more open to it at first than anybody else. The Virgos of the world are the naysayers, and it's like, well, this isn't science. This is just baloney, and I never try and argue with a Virgo. It's not worth my time. I have better things to do. Bless their hearts. They're doing the best they can, okay? So anyway, but I do have Virgos who do use it. One of my best friends is a Virgo, and oh my God, she's like a crusader out there with her war horse and her flags and her shield raised and her sword, saying how wonderful homeopathy is. So you get all kinds. Stories from the medical world.
That's incredible. I think something that I know is that even though I've been fully submerged into the healing arts for like over a decade, the homeopathy rarely come up for me. And I had moments where I've had like a bite or like a bee sting or something. And one of my friends that are also herbalists would recommend some of the homeopathy, but at least for me, it's not something that's been like immediately available. I actually got your book, Homeopathy for Epidemics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got that book and I was like, wow, this is so interesting. But it's like, I find that not common knowledge, the way that people are into crystals or energy medicine, like Reiki or something. Like, I don't know why it's not as common, but I'm really glad that you're sharing this information right now.
So homeopathy, believe me, it's the second most powerful medicine in the world. That's a fact. The top one is the AMA, what they call traditional medicine, but homeopathy was the original medicine. And it is the original medicine. Long before the AMA came in with its politics and the big pharma and charging people an arm and a leg and thousands of dollars, when if you buy a homeopathic remedy, it might cost you $5 or $6 and it could save a life. Someday, if your people would like to know more about homeopathy, I would love to talk to them about it because I know there's people out there who can really use it. And I wrote a book with a good friend of mine, Gail Darren. She was a EMT sister of mine in Arizona. She is a doctor of Oriental medicine and lives in California. And she and I wrote Homeopathy 911. And it's by Eileen Nauman and Gail Darren. And there may be copies floating around, but if you can find one, it could save a life. It really could.
Amazing. Yeah, I think maybe next time we could just do a chat where you share like 5, 6, 7 to 10 of the most important formulas to have.
Yeah, there
You
are
know?
some. I would love to do that. I'd give
Yeah.
you the top 10 constitutional remedies that constitutional remedies have not only great breadth of dealing with health issues, but great depth. And they cure, homeopathy cures.
Beautiful.
So I could give like the top 10 and explain to you exactly what they do and how they can help you and how you use them. And we have several homeopathic pharmacies here in the United States, and they all have kits. And they always have a family kit or a personal kit that might have 20 of the most best well-known remedies, and you carry that around. You can leave it in the glove box of your car. I don't care if the car is 130 degrees. Heat doesn't kill energy. It doesn't hurt the homeopathic remedy at all. I have put my kit through so many x-rays in so many foreign countries. When you fly in from the US or fly in or out, you're always putting everything under x-ray. My remedies have been through untold, I don't know, I've lost track. And they still work because you can't destroy energy. And x-ray cannot change the remedy structure either, period. It's amazing. But if you really want to get a bird's eye view of how important this is, go out on the internet and look up Homeopathy 911 by Eileen Nauman and Gail Darren. We were in the trenches. We used this stuff. We saved lives. We stabilized people with it. until we could get them to the emergency room or to surgery.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I hope people have more faith in the things that of energy that we can't see, but they do help us.
I think what your main message that I'm getting, that's actually really important because we are just so indoctrinated that you have to do more to have more result, is that like less is actually more, or a small amount is enough. And that is very like, it almost doesn't compute for the way that our minds have been trained.
Well, you've been brainwashed.
Yeah, very much so.
I don't call that training. I call that brainwashing. Because I see it
Absolutely.
all the time. And thank goodness you and your following are far more broad-minded and less brainwashed than most. So you're very lucky. You're very fortunate. And these are the people who are moving to energy ways of working, and they may hold judgment on it, or they go, well, maybe it does. But you know what? Every one of these people are going to be in a situation where they're going to need to have to use some sort of energy medicine, and it's going to help them at the right moment, the right time, and it'll prove itself to them. This is what happens. This is how people get into energy medicine. That's why my YouTube is Energy 101. I'm here to teach the ABCs, the brick foundation of these different ways of healing ourselves and helping ourselves. Because there's people polluting the rivers, the ocean. Now we got nanoplastics and everything and everybody in every possible way. That is just so, my mind still can't wrap around it. How did this happen? How long had it been going on? If you do a cruise ship across the ocean, they're dumping all of their trash in the ocean. And do you know, oh yeah, they do that all the time. Do you think they bring the trash back from the cruise ship and put it on the dock and the wharf for the people to take it to the garbage dump? Oh boy, Oak, are you really thinking that? No, they don't. They dump it in the ocean. This is why the ocean has nanoplastics in it. There's thousands upon thousands of pint or quart water bottles in a 7-day cruise that is put and dumped at night down below decks into the Mother Ocean, and it goes to the bottom, and there it sits. And there it begins its life as a poison for the water, but a poison for all of us. Sorry, I didn't mean to ruin your day, but
Sorry, that just really made me super nauseous.
yeah,
Oh,
I've done
that's so
lots of
sad.
cruises. I found this out the hard way. I got lost one night on a cruise and I didn't know where I was, and I was just following my nose. And I ended up way down deep in the guts of the cruise ship. I was in the US Navy, so I know ships, okay? I have a little bit of knowledge over on that side with it. And I figured that if I could get to a certain place, there was going to be ladders, what we call ladders or stairs. Ladders is the Navy term for stairs. And I would find eventually my way up. And I felt like I was in a 3D chessboard and I was totally lost. But where I ended up is where they were actually pushing the garbage and stuff out of the ship into the water. I couldn't believe it. I did not know it until that time, until I saw it for myself. So they got me lost for a reason. Yeah, I know. We've put ourselves into quite a conundrum here, but I'm still saying there's ways out of it. There's ways for people to navigate it. There's still ways that we can stay healthy. And I mean, I'm 78 years old. I'm heading for 80 in 2 years. Oh my God. But I mean, how many people have my energy, have a head on my shoulders? I don't keep forgetting things too often. How many 78-year-olds do you know that are together and out there and talking and doing, writing books and giving lectures and helping people? And I have a garden and I have a dog and I have a husband who we've been married 51 years. We are the best team together, and I'm very happy. So you can be just like me. Oh my God. Hey, you want to be like me. You want my energy. You want my mental faculties. You keep saying that Joe Biden at, what is he? Is he 80 or 78 or 80?
He's
Yeah,
born around the same time that you're born.
yeah. And Trump is my astro twin. We were both born in 1946, and I'll put my brain up against his for sure. Joe Biden, I think, is doing quite well, but man, the guy's carrying the world on his shoulders. There's so many things that he has to know, but he's still showing what happens when you hit your 80s. My husband is 80 and he's nothing like that. He's sharp, he's smart, he's experienced, he's funny. You can have a quality of life. This is what I'm telling you. We're good stewards of what you can be at a later age. You can be 100% of value to your world, to your family, to the people around you. I mean, I have so many people who know I'm an herbalist. They come in, they knock on the door, we come in, sit down, I take their case, and they want herbs because these are Appalachia people. They were raised on herbs. That's all they know. They won't take a homeopathic remedy. They will not take, they absolutely hate AMA drugs. Okay. Sometimes I have to argue with them and say, look, you do need an antibiotic. And now, not later. And I saved a woman's life 3 days ago with that. And online, she happened to be a romance reader of mine. And she looked me up and said, I'm dying. Well, who's going to turn and say, no, I don't have time for you? That's bull. And so I got involved, and it's been 3 weeks, but we pulled her out of it with homeopathy. I kept sending things in the mail to her. And then I'll finish with this, and this will give you all pause to think about. She had cellulitis. This arm, it was her right arm, was this big, this swollen. I am not joking. I have pictures of it. And I looked at that and I thought, oh my God. And I said, well, what is your doctor doing? What does your doctor diagnose? And she says, well, I can't get in. I says, you've got to get in. You've got to get to the ER. She went to the ER. They didn't want to see her because she was a poor person and she's almost homeless. She says, well, aren't you going to take my temperature? And they said, no, you're fine. Go away. And she came back to me online. She has a friend's computer so that she can talk to me. The reason why she came to me is because she loved my book. She didn't know I was a homeopath. This is how my life goes. And I'm no more going to walk away from somebody that's sick, that I will give everything I've got to try and help them. And I sent her remedies. That helped. She had bed bugs in her bed. She was in the shambles of a shack. The entire mattress was filled with bed bugs. She had thousands of bites around her body. She was getting poisoned with it. She had allergies. She had asthma. She had cellulitis. We finally found out, and I told her, I said, you've got to stop. And okay, so this was a critical thing. Okay, I knew how close she was to dying. And I will say that from a metaphysical standpoint. I know when somebody's close to going. It's just like that. And I did not know whether she really wanted to go or she really wanted to stay. But if they brought me in on it, there was supposed to be some help to help her make her own decision. I don't make that decision, thank God. But what happened is that I sent her the remedy, Apis mellifica, by the way. Okay, your favorite remedy. And I sent a 200C and a 1M and a 30C. And I had her take the 30C, and this was 2 days later. 3 days later, she was in Colorado, I'm here in Virginia, that she got it. And I had her take a 30C to see if it was going to make a difference. That's what you do. You start low to see if there's a vital force reaction, a physical reaction, or a mental or an emotional reaction to it. And you will know it, believe me. It doesn't hide from you. And her arm was so swollen and everything, she couldn't even bend it. Okay, it was that swollen. Her elbow, she couldn't bend it. And by taking the 30C, it was down enough. She says, look, I can almost move my elbow. I can move it again. And so that was a sign that it was the right one. So I gave her 200C. It knocked her out, but it reduced this by about 30%. You could actually see a change in it. So I knew we were on the right track. Then the next question is getting her to a medical doctor, her primary physician, get in to get a diagnosis on this. And finally, she got up the next morning and couldn't believe first of all, she could move her elbow and so that she could lift stuff and pick things up instead of it being out like this because it was so swollen. And so I said, look, if you don't go today to your doctor, you're going to die from this. I said, do you really want to die? And she goes, no, I don't want to die. But she says, nobody will help me. I said, I'm helping you. I said, but I need you to help me to help you. get to your doctor. Can you do this? And she doesn't have a car. She has to rely on people around her to do things. And so this woman came and volunteered to take her to her doctor. Well, the doctor finally saw her and they put her through all kinds of lab tests and gave her an antibiotic, and it was cellulitis. Okay. But this is severe cellulitis. Cellulitis can kill you. It's an actual infection at a cellular level. It can and does kill. And with this being so close to her heart, okay, I was truly concerned because it would move from here up to the shoulder and then down into the heart. That would be the next place. And she would have a heart attack. She would die. That's it. And I knew we were running out of time. And it was like, Jesus, this thing is just moving so close, so close, so close. And it was like, I couldn't keep ahead of it because she had bed bug bites. She had so much poison from the bed bugs in her body. And apis, again, is a good remedy to stop the anaphylactic reaction. All right. But it did not stop the poison. So I sent her some lachesis, which is a snake venom at 30C. And as soon as I did that, and she got it 3 days later, the swelling here started reducing even more dramatically. So not only was there the infection, the bacterial infection of cellulitis, it was the poisoning from the bed bugs. It was a layered kind of thing, and you had to figure it out. And so within 2 days, that arm was down to normal. The only thing she had left was a little bit of some pain and a hardness around where her elbow was at. And eventually that also cleared out. But it was touch and go. And this is what homeopathy can do. And she didn't have anything. And I kept sending her remedies that she needed. And thank God they were the correct ones. And they finally got her out. The social services got her out of that shack, took her to a motel. She didn't have any way to wash up. The tub that was in that shack was broken. She had no water. I don't make these things up. This is real life. This is brutally real life. But the homeopathy, okay, carried the day, time and time again, stopped that heart attack from ever hitting her because I knew that was next. You know, I've been homeopath for, God, since 1970. So I know what I see and I know what can happen. And they have her in a motel. She's in a clean bed, no bed bugs. She has a shower. She could wash her hair. She could wash herself. I mean, do you know what that means? If you're a homeless person, this is what happens. And so homeopathy saved the day. The medicine is an incredible, magical energy medicine. And it can take on anything, even cancer. We have people who get cancer who go to a homeopath and they get cured. They don't die. And it sure as hell didn't cost them $100,000 or $200,000 to do it by taking a lot of cancer type related, IVs and chemicals or whatever. Okay. So it is a medicine for the people. And I have spent years teaching homeopathy at a first aid level because I've seen what it can do to help people. You can take people out of shock kills, and that's not a joke. It's a terrible tragedy. And if I was 40 years younger, I'd be over in Gaza and I would be there with my homeopathic kit, and I would be helping those people that are being murdered by the Israelis just to get to Hamas. The people shouldn't be suffering like that. And most of them are women and children that are dying. And I swear, if I was 40 years younger, I would be fucking there in the middle of that war with my homeopathic kit. I would save lives, lots of lives. And as an EMT, I really do know how to save a life from the physical standpoint. But the homeopathy also does it physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It reaches you everywhere. That's why you stabilize so quickly on a homeopathic remedy. Nothing else does it. So if you ever get in big trouble, you know who to call.
Oh, I know already.
Yeah, you do. But it had nothing to do with homeopathy. You took another route to healing. You did the shamanic route, which is fine. It's an energy medicine too. When you bring pieces back from people, that's energy. You can't see it, you can't weigh it, you can't measure it, but boy, when you get your pieces back, you feel it and you start making changes on every level of yourself that are good. they're always good. It always helps stabilize the human being.
Yeah, I think every time I talk to you and the reason why I just like really love having these conversations with you here is because I think a lot of people are suffering and they don't realize that there's just so much that's available.
Right.
For me, like all my friends are psychic and it's just the world that I inhabit. So it's like I'm just very lucky to have my mind shift towards knowing that solutions are available. But I think that more and more people need to know these things. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. All right.
Alrighty.
Love you all.
Love
Blessings.
you.